Hello, Ling 1111. Our next lesson is on compounding and a couple of more things about besides compounding, such as morphological processes. So, besides derivation and inflection, we have compounding, and compounding is a little bit different. So, for example, this is black, right? And this is board, and this is a police, and this is a man, right? If we add black as an adjective and board as a noun, we get blackboard. Police as a noun, policeman, or man as a noun, we get policeman, right? This is what we call compounding, when we add two free morphemes together. So compounding is a combination of lexical categories, noun, verb, adverb, adjective, or preposition to form a larger word. For example, fire engine, right? That would be a large word. This is paper, and this is a house. So we can add these two together and get a paper house, right? When compounding results in one word, the compound is called close compound, such as policeman, bookstore, fireman. When compounding results in two words, it's called the open compound, such as coffee mug, living room, full moon, dinner table. When compound results in a hyphenated word, it's called a hyphenated compound, such as long-term, up-to-date, brother-in-law, and so on and so forth. Let's start with blackboard. Black is an adjective, right? Board is, of course, a noun, and blackboard is a noun. So that's how we are going to build this word with two lexical categories, not an affix anymore, but an adjective. Which word or morpheme determines the category of the final word? So how do we know this is a noun? Well, board in this case, which is considered the head, right? Blackboard. Head is the morpheme that determines the category of the entire word. For example, greenhouse. Green is an adjective, house is a noun, and the whole thing is a noun. So what is the head of the compound? House, of course. It determines the category of the whole word. Can there be a three-word compound? Essentially, yes. For example, a river boat race, right? We can have a river, we can have a boat, river boat, and we can have a race, river boat race, right? And this is how we're going to build this one up. So first, we merge together river and boat, and then race. We can do it differently, right? We can have a boat and race. It's kind of boat race. It's not an airplane race, and it's a boat race. And what kind of boat race? Well, it's a river boat race. It's not a sea boat race, right? So we'll mainly focus on two morpheme compounds, unless they're hyphenated, because of syntax, which we cover next, right? So there are three types of word formation: derivation, inflection, and compounding. Can we have all three in one word, in one compound? Yes, for example, election date. Elect is actually a verb. Let me stay here. Let's do it again. Verb, and then we have an affix, ion or ion, election, elect, ion, election. Then we have a date, right? Election date. It can be one date, right? So election date, and finally we have election dates. Right. What's derivation? So derivation is the first one, election. And what's compounding? Election date. That would be the compounding. And what's an inflection? The last one, right? Let me draw a little bit. So derivation, please write the whole thing. Don't be lazy like me. Then this thing here is compounding. And finally, we have inflection. All right. That's how we will build this tree. or this word. So how do we know that it's election date? So election date plus S, the whole thing plus and not election plus dates, not this one. So we have like election and then we add dates. Uh, so this is not a proper form. How do we know this? Well, the tense and plural marker cannot be attached to the first element in the compound, only to the entire compound. So for example, we can compare it to some other compounds, such as drop kick. The player dropped kick the ball. It's not grammatically correct, right? The player drop kicked the ball. That's grammatically correct. So it attaches to the whole compound. The duck hunter, the duck's hunter didn't have a license, so that's not true. The duck hunters didn't have a license. That's grammatically correct, right? So it attaches to the whole compound. There are, of course, variable cases such as runners-up, runner-ups, maids of honor, maid of honors. So we voted in class which ones were better. I think there are different shades of these, and this is not set in stone, this rule, but it works for the majority of cases. Another very important marker of compounds is stress. For example, adjective noun compounds are characterized by more prominent stress on the first component. For example, greenhouse, blackboard, but non-compounds consisting of an adjective and a noun, in contrast, the second element is stressed. For example, greenhouse. It's not a greenhouse, it's not a blackboard, it's literally a blackboard. It's a greenhouse, so house painted in green, right? And this would be our blackboard, like the first one here, and this would be literally a blackboard, right? So the stress is on board in a non-compound environment. There are two types of compounds. The first one is endocentric, a compound whose head, usually the rightmost component in English, identifies the general class to which the meaning of the entire word belongs. So, for example, we can have a dump truck, a type of a truck, and a caveman, it's a type of a man, right? So both of these are literally type of a truck, a type of a man. This man compound here, or a part of compound, determines whether what class the whole thing will belong to. In comparison, most of the compounds in English are exocentric, actually. A compound whose meaning does not follow from the meaning of its parts. For example, a redneck. It's a type of a person. It's not really a type of a neck. It's not really literally a redneck. Saber-tooth. It's a type of a tiger, not really a type of a tooth, right? Yeah, and we practiced those in class. We went through some examples. So endocentric compounds apply the irregular plural, while exocentric compounds apply the regular plural s. For example, this is how you can distinguish these two. Wisdom teeth, right? It's irregular plural. It's not wisdom tooths. But for exocentric compounds, you can have saber tooths, right? Bigfoots, maple leaves. Now you know. When somebody asks you at a party, why is maple leaves leaves, not leaves? Well, you'll tell them it's an exocentric compound, right? And that's it about compounding. I wanted to mention that we have certain processes in morphology that we are going to go through right now. The first process that we're going to go through is suppletion. Suppletion replaces a morpheme with an entirely different morpheme in order to indicate a grammatical contrast. So, for example, we have in French avoir, to have, and its suppletive form is ou, had, or ou, I don't know how you read it, but that's about it. It completely changes the form. Ir in Spanish and fue, went, right? To go and went, also indicating past. Ist and sind is and are in German. And in English, for example, to be, but in the past was and were, right? Or is and are in the present, and in the past it was and were. It's completely different form. This is what we call suppletion. And we have reduplication. Reduplication is a morphological process that marks a grammatical or semantic contrast by repeating all or part of the base. For example, in a full repetition or a full reduplication, we have orang, which means in Indonesian man, but orang means men, more than one, right? Anak, children, right? As simple as that. We have a partial reduplication when only a part of the base is repeated. For example, in Tagalog, we have tagpo and tatakbo, which means will run. So usually indicating future, right? Lakad, walk, lalakad, will walk, right? And we don't have tagbo now, a full reduplication. We have only a partial one, tagbo, tatakbo, whereby the first part, ta, is repeated to indicate certain grammatical function. In English, we have maybe partial reduplication, razzle dazzle, hocus focus, or hocus pocus, nitty gritty, and so on and so forth, right? These are just some processes. I want us to go through another important process, which we call elomorphy. For example, this one is an orange, and this one is a pear, right? We say an orange, and we say a pear. Okay. How do you determine, sorry about this, how do you determine whether an indefinite article should be an or a? Right. So the choice is determined based on pronunciation, not spelling, which is why we say an MA degree and a US dollar. It's U, yes, Y letter. It's not really a vowel, it's a consonant. So N goes before a vowel and A goes before a consonant. A book, a toy, a computer. But we say an apple, an MA degree, an MVP, or an envelope, right? So this is how we will know. The variant pronunciations of a morpheme are called allomorphs. So just like you have allophones, you have allomorphs. Another example of allomorphic variation is usually plurals. For example, cats, dogs, and judges. We have cat plus s, which gives us s. We have dogs, g plus s, which gives us z. And we have judge plus s, which gives us is, judges. Right? Okay. Just a sec. Okay. Oops. So how do you determine whether if indefinite article should be N or A? That's a question we already answered, and we answered it in class. There is another allomorph that we should, or another morpheme with many allomorphs that we should be aware of, which is in, ill, and er. So for example, inactive, improper, incongruous, illegal, irregular, all of that is one and the same morpheme, and that's in. It only has different allomorphs or realizations. And that's it from allomorphy. I'll maybe draw your attention to another one, which is so there are a couple of allomorphs, which is plural. That's the first one. Ed, past tense, indicating past tense. It can be watched as t, it can be realized as t, it can be realized as the and id, right? Then in, or I was better write it like this, in, which is a prefix. Be aware of those. I think those are the main ones. Those are the main allomorphs, right? Okay, so make sure to know that these have all different allomorphs. Now, so we've covered suppletion, we've covered reduplication, we've covered allomorphy, and now we move on to other morphological processes. For example, we can have play plus ed, which will create played, bathe plus ed, which will create bathed, and this is an invented word which we had for our quick write. Sorry about that. Yeah. This is what we call inflection, right? When we add this inflectional affix. But what about sing, sang, sunk, drink, drank, drunk, string, strang, strunk? Another invented word here. We call this ablaut. It's a German word which means from, or ab, which means from or up, I think. And then laut means sound. It doesn't matter. You should know that when there is a vowel change, like here, sing, sang, sunk, right? This is what we call an ablaut, and it usually marks grammatical contrast, a past tense and then a past participle. So present, past tense, past participle. Basically, this is the only time when we will have an ablaut in English. This is a goose. What are these? Geese, right? Goose, geese, foot, feet, mouse, mice. It's not an ablaut anymore. It's an umlaut. It's still a German word. And in this case, the vowel does change from goose to geese, from foot to feet, from mouse to mice. What happens here is that u and u and ow are changing into e and a. These three are moving forward. They are being fronted. So when there is a fronting of the vowel, then there is an umlaut. In Old English, goose used to be goss, and they added plural to, and this was read as gossy. This e actually influenced the o to become another e. And now in modern English, contemporary English, we have geese in the end. So it's just a matter of historical change, right? So ablaut is an irregular tense. Umlaut is irregular plural, right? And all of these are known as internal changes. So there are two types of internal changes, ablaut and umlaut. Please be aware of both of these and when they occur. Internal change, as the name suggests, is a process that changes something internally to mark a grammatical contrast. It substitutes one non-morphemic segment. So there is a non-morphemic segment such as e, or e, or a, or u, or e. They have no meaning. They're not morphemes. They're just vowels. And they make a grammatical contrast with this. So this was the internal change, ablaut and umlaut. And I showed you some stats from the quick write. Most of you said that bathe was bathed and nick was nicked, right? This was a regular past formation, but mide was mode, miden, string, strang, strunk, right? And these are all cases of ablaut, except for maybe miden, which is a case of inflection. So pay attention to this. How do you know what internal changes to apply? Well, you knew because they are already similar to the forms that we know about, such as ride, drink, and run. So you knew because you already acquired these. These are also sometimes called strong forms. These are called weak forms, right? Strong forms mean that they stem from Old English, right? They were retained from our Old English, but these weak forms were not. They changed, and now we have a regular change by adding ed. This is a butter, and they are buttering the bread. This is a ship, and they are shipping the package, right? Ship as a noun turns into ship as a verb, which we call conversion. Conversion is a process that assigns an already existing word to a new lexical category. should be here, category. How many affixes are added to ship to become ship? 0. That's correct. Because no affixes are added to the word, conversion is sometimes called zero derivation. Okay, we got the 0 part, but why derivation? Because of the change of the category. Noun changes into a verb, and also from a large boat, you change it into sent, a completely different meaning, right? So that's why it's derivation. Remember, you change category and meaning in derivation, but you can know it as conversion, right? So for example, some examples of conversion are ink, button, butter, to ink, to button, to butter, to pen a contract as well. That's more standard now these days. Then nouns, which are derived from verbs. So this run was first used as a verb, to run, but now it's a long run. It's a hot drink. It's a pleasant drive. And it was a dirty shirt, but now it's to dirty your shirt, to empty the box, to total a car, right? Verbs became, or verbs were derived from adjectives. Another very important part of conversion is stress placement. For example, for implant versus implant, the stress is different. This first one has stress on the second syllable, implant. The second one has a stress on the first syllable, implant. Permit in the same case, permit versus permit, right? So there is a stress change in these, such as content, contrast, contrast, right? These are also converted. All right, so we had so far suppletion, reduplication, Elomorphy, ablaut, umlaut, conversion, right? If I'm not missing any, that's good. How many of you have a shorter version of your name? Well, most of you, I guess. For example, Elizabeth, it's Liz. Ronald is Ron. Robert is Rob. Susan is Sue. This is what we call clipping. Elizabeth is clipped to be Liz. We clip both of these, and we try to clip to make a one-syllable word. Ronald is clipped to become Ron. Robert is clipped to become Rob. Susan, Sue. Clipping is a process that shortens a multisyllabic word by deleting one or more syllables, right? For example, another example of clipping is influenza or influenza, whereby you get flu, right? Caravan, whereby you get van. Fanatic, when you get a fan from it, right? These are all clipped. Okay, so we had clipping. What is a popular Korean drink? This is a pop quiz. It's soju, right? And it's written in Korean like this, or in Korean Hangul. But Koreans like to also drink megju, which is beer, and it's written like this. Koreans like to mix it up a little bit, and they put soju into beer, and they make someg. Why did they call it someg? Well, because they took the first part of soju, so, and they took the first part of megju and joined them together to receive someg. They also write it like that, right? First syllable, so, and meg, and they got someg, right? As simple as that. This is what we call blending, when you blend two words, right? Or parts of two words. Also, check out Spanish calimocho. It's very interesting how it got its name. When non-morphemic parts of the two already existing items combine, the process is called blending. So as I said, soju, saw, and megju, meg, these are non-morphemic, meaning they are not morphemes on their own, but they're just two parts of the word. Usually you cut one word in where vowel is, because it's easier to combine words. Then in Korean, Blends take first syllables of words, but in English, usually the first part of one and the last part of the other are blended. For example, Wi-Fi. It came from wireless hi-fi. Wireless hi-fi, right? Motel, motor, hotel, right? Smog, smoke and fog. Instagram, it's instant camera plus telegram. Yeah, that's how you got Instagram. So all of these parts combine first and the last part of the words, but frozen yogurt is called froyo. Sometimes we can have first two parts, right, of the words, and we get froyo. That was blending. Next up is backformation, a process that creates a new word by removing real or supposed affix from another word. This is what we call backformation. For example, we have resurrection, and we remove this iron part, we get resurrect. Donation, donate. Self-destruction, self-destruct. Liaise from liaison, laze from laser, and tase from taser. So memorize these. How are they different from clipping? Well, clipping is flu and backformation is laze. Clipping does not change the lexical category. So, for example, influenza is a noun, flu is still a noun. Laser, in this case, is a noun, but to laze, it's a verb, right? So it changes the category. And some confusing examples of backformation are the following. For example, editor, word which is the original word, you might perceive it as edit plus or, and in the end we can have a backformation like edit. Swindler as well, vapor, and orator. However, these two are valid, but this one is not. Why is that so? Well, because editor did not come from edit plus or. It was already editor. In the past, we first had the word editor and then edit. This is a good example of orator. Orator is a Latin word, and it in Latin it used to be pronounced as orator, right? That was the first word that came or into being, orator, right? Then from orator, they after some time they ask, what is orator's job? Orator's job? He must be not only just speaking in public or narrating or professing whatever you wish. They could be orating as well. So we came up with orate. So these are the verbs that were back formed, right? Or obtained by back formation. And don't confuse them with teacher, teach and teacher, where we had first teach and then we add to make a teacher, or freeze and freezer, where we had freeze plus to make a freezer. So just remember these and note that this is the result of a historical change rather than anything else. So remember these examples here on this slide and on the previous slide, and that should do it. Finally, or not finally, actually, penultimate ones are acronyms and initialisms. Acronyms are formed by taking the initial letters of the words in a phrase or title and producing them as a word. So some examples are United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, which we produce as UNICEF. North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which we produce as NATO. Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, we produce as AIDS. So these are acronyms. What about USA? Is this an acronym? Well, not really. It's initialism. Initialisms are formed in the same exact way, but initialisms are produced as a series of letters, and acronyms are produced as words. So this is the main difference between the two. B-Y-O-B. I pronounce each letter, B or sound. B-Y-O-B. Bring your own booze. USA. D-I-Y. Do it for yourself. Okay. E-N-T. BTS. MBA, right? All of these are initialisms. But if you produce them as a whole word, like UNICEF, you don't say UNICEF, right? You say UNICEF, you say NATO, you say AIDS, you say SCUBA. All of these are acronyms. So make this distinction between these two. And finally, we have onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia or onomatopoeic words are buzz, hiss, sizzle, cuckoo. These are words that are created to sound like the thing that they name, right? So buzz, it's sort of a buzzing sound, hissing sound, so on and so forth. And we usually use onomatopoeia for animals when animals are producing certain sounds, such as rooster, cock-a-doodle-doo, right? In English, in Japanese, it's koke-koko. In Serbian, it's kukuriku. Cat, meow. Japanese, nya. And Serbian, meow. Dog, bawa or woof woof. And in Japanese, wan wan. In Serbian, av av, right? So different languages produce these in different ways because we hear them differently, or simply because our native languages influence how we are going to transcribe them, right? How we're going to represent them on a piece of paper. So that's why this is av and not bawa, right? To make a point, I'll give you these two. This is number one, this is number two. These are two objects have names. They're Kiki and Buba. Which one is which? Most of you would say that this one is Kiki, this one is Buba, and this is what we call Bubakiki effect. It's a non-arbitrary mapping between speech sounds and the visual shapes of objects. For example, why is a phone called phone? No reason. Why is a pen called pen? No reason. It can be anything else. Why is desk called desk? It can be Tisch in German, or chair. Why is chair called chair? It's no reason. It can be Stuhl in German, and that's what we call arbitrary. So no connection between the actual sounds or words and the object, right? However, some objects some words, like onomatopoeic words, want to be non-arbitrary, want to resemble the sound as much as they can, right? As much as our imagination allows. And scientists, I think German scientists, notice this effect, that there are certain cross linguistically, like in every language, that many people would call this spiky object Kiki, and this circular object Buba, right? Because of the sound, or the sound that resonates in your head. Sorry. That's better. So, from all the talking, we've covered some of the processes here. There are three more. So ablaut, umlaut, conversion, clipping, blending, backformation, acronyms, initialisms, and onomatopoeia. These are these are the examples of these. We have suppletion, we have reduplication, and allomorphy. Three more processes that we need to be aware of. And that's it from me for now. I'll see you in the next lesson.